Welcome to Exploring Digital with Purr, a podcast for entrepreneurs and CEOs who want their businesses to benefit from a digital-first approach. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr. I'm joined today by Sam Booth from Just After Midnight. Hi, Sam.
Hello, how you doing?
Really well, you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
So for the uninitiated, do you just want to explain a little bit about what Just After Midnight is and what makes you guys so special?
Yeah, of course. So Just After Midnight is we call ourselves the go-to support people for brands and their agencies. And effectively, in real terms, what that means is that we provide a specialist 24/7 support service to a huge number of digital agencies throughout the UK and throughout the world, Australia, Singapore, and the United States. So over 90, I think almost 100 partners now that we provide 24/7 support services for. We also have another part of our business, which is more of a cloud consultancy. So we specialize in AWS and putting workloads into the cloud.
So I think a couple of things that distinguish you from some of the other people I've spoken to on this podcast recently are, one, that your kind of exposure or your reach is more global, I guess, than a lot of the people I've been speaking to. So I was wondering, first of all, how you've seen differences in the way that sort of COVID's affected your business or your clients around the world and in different territories.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, actually, because it's gone in phases, and depending on what level of lockdown people have been on, or what where they've been in the process, or the amount of cases or the amount of deaths or whatever else is due to COVID-19. So it started. Singapore have a very recent memory of SARS outbreak back in 2003, is it? So they have that in their memory. It impacted that region more. So they immediately went into a state of kind of self-enforced lockdown, although they were doing very good contact tracing and everything else there. So they didn't really go into a formal lockdown. But so we noticed it first in Singapore, whereas at that point in time, because the UK and Australia certainly and the States didn't have that recent memory really, everything just went on as normal. So we started to see a bit of a slowdown in the way that people signing off work in that region. Then, funnily enough, obviously when we went into lockdown here, it was much worse because it was kind of happened much more of a sudden way, and people suddenly woke up and realised that was the case. But by then, Singapore had already sort of got used to what was normal, and Australia have been less affected as a whole, I think, and they've had lockdowns which they're already sort of starting to move out of, but people seem to have taken a more relaxed attitude to it and just carried on making decisions, and I see that in the States as well. I think
so you do have a US office now.
Yeah, in Boston. It's a small office just starting there, but we have a number of clients over there, all over. So from lots in around Boston and New York, and a few in Kansas and Chicago. So they've sort of carried on. I think weirdly the UK seems to had the most impact on the UK out of all the markets that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see someone who's had that full gamut of experience, not just from the kind of the breadth of how it's affected people on a health and economy level, but sort of on a political sense, the differences in the way that lockdowns are affecting different countries and their businesses. It's funny you touched on Singapore. I know when we last saw each other in person, probably 3 months ago now, on a boat on the Thames, you were mentioning how you were about to go out to Singapore, and maybe that would have to be on pause for a bit.
Yeah, that went on pause. There was no formal cancellation or lockdown or quarantine period, but it was kind of getting to the point where everyone locked down about a week before we officially locked down, because I think people in the real world realised it was probably sensible a week before the government did or so. So it was kind of that part where everyone sort of went into self quarantine. So we ended up not doing it. Funnily enough, I actually caught.
Yeah, I was going to say, because how early on in all of this were you struck down?
I think there was about 250 cases in the UK at that point.
Well, so confirmed pretty early cases, on. I guess.
Confirmed, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was I'm sure there is way more now, but I'm no expert on that side of things. But yeah, so we got it pretty early. So I think I had it when I was meant to be in Singapore, ironically. So I probably would have been safer going, but
And are you confident that this was nothing to do with your employee who was in Wuhan at the time of the outbreak?
I think I'm pretty confident. No, I actually think it was an event that I did the week before, and everyone was it was like the last event before lockdown, and everyone was kind of, should we shake hands? Shouldn't we? Ended up doing it because it
Mm.
felt more natural, and I think actually that was probably the place that we
Yeah,
ended
the
up
Boris
doing it.
Johnson approach.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was taking. Um, we had an event the following week, which also carried on. Obviously, they're not going to cancel it unless they're told to, and that I couldn't go because it was already already happening. But yeah.
So yeah, you've seen a kind of a very different experience of this whole COVID world than I have. I guess
Yeah.
one by being personally exposed, and two being seeing the impact all over the world. But how would you say it's affected your business, I guess, day to day, to start with? Because I guess you guys were pretty well set up to do this sort of thing remotely from the off, and because you
Yeah.
had this global model and you were used to people dipping in and out of work, it was something you were very prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, work-wise, it was a non-issue for us in terms of we're not a hugely old business, so a lot of our business is cloud-based, and we work in cloud technologies. So there's nothing physical in our business to stop us doing that. We actually are used to doing work which is partly sort of 9 to 5, but then partly shift based.
Mm.
So again, we're prepared to work in that sense. And we work as a global operation. So we have to be, we weren't entirely remote. We do have offices, but effectively we could run remote at any point in time. So that's been a fairly positive thing from our perspective. Also, we're in digital, and whilst the physical world has been turned upside down by that, a lot of our clients have actually needed to get support in moving to the cloud
sort
and
of
moving.
scalability or more resilience, whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah, and more support. And we've got a few medical based clients in hospital groups in the US, and obviously it became critical they can get information to patients quickly. So, from a business perspective, I'm not going to sit and say it's skyrocketing or anything like that, but we're better set up because of what we do. And
Yeah.
thirdly, our business is very much about ongoing revenue and retainers from that perspective. So when we're doing a contract with people, our standard contract is a 24-month contract, because of the fact that to support something, because our support is at application and infrastructure level, not just the AWS.
Yeah, you have to have such a good understanding
Yeah.
of the product anyway that there's no point dipping in and out.
You can't, and you have to learn it, and you have to get to grips with everything about how something's been built and the integrations, and it's a real. And that's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's a hard task. Yeah.
And keeping that knowledge within the business and transferring it and documenting it. It's there's a reason why people don't do support well traditionally.
Absolutely, and knowledge management is pretty much what I say is the number one. Alongside recruiting the right type of people, knowledge management is the number one thing that we think about on a day-to-day basis. But it does mean that we do have longer-term contracts, so that's a good thing. But there's no getting away from it. We've all been there. Contracts that were going to be signed suddenly took a bit longer, and a couple of them might dropped away, and these kind of things. But that's the nature of the beast.
So would you say having a kind of a mixture of direct and agency clients that you think by and large agencies have been worse hit or worse affected than the direct clients?
It depends on the industries and the industries which those agencies are serving. At the end of the day, I mean, we've got agency partners that would, had travel clients and airlines and these ones, and obviously they're, if that made up a large proportion and they had a big account with a BA or the like, then they got hit pretty hard. Not so much the digital side, but generally some of these agencies are working across lots of channels and digital. The digital side is kind of held up because they need to get information across, but anything that was operational or marketing or trying to convince people to go on holidays, etc., is gone. So those ones got hit really hard. Other people, pharmaceutical companies, spring to mind, medicine, medical in general, have done fairly, better. But that the same applies really across the agencies and the direct clients.
Yeah. So in terms of the clients that have done, well, let's not say well out of it, but the clients who've been coming to you and saying, well, actually, as a result of this, we need some help doing X, Y, and Z, or we'd like to reconsider this for the future. would you say that's largely fallen into scaling, or into what is there a kind of a broad direction it's by and large gone in?
Yeah, there's a couple of themes. I mean, cost optimization on the cloud side of things is something there's a lot of noise about at the moment, because obviously you'll let when in good times you'll let the cloud spend run away with itself, and if developers
just
need,
pick up the AWS bills at the end of the month.
yeah, and if developers need an extra test environment or two, and then it's kind of neither here nor there, and back up a database and it's left there in place and running. These things don't get noticed as much, but actually obviously they should be optimized all the time, but people, it falls by the wayside. So there's a lot of people come to us and say, listen, we've got these bills, what can we do about it? And secondly, they have the issue whereby there's a lot of legacy IT providers that now provide cloud services because they need to, because their data center businesses are, this private cloud's still a big thing, but it's, public cloud is growing and growing. And they realize that the support from those is not quite what they want. They want something a bit more personal touch. And these guys have got 10,000 people somewhere, and they're not getting the service level, but they're paying premium prices for it. And so they realize.
So there were some agencies some companies providing support out there who didn't rise to this challenge as well as you guys did. Is that?
I just don't think they could. No, yeah. I mean, if you've got 10,000 engineers and someone gives them a call because they've got an issue and they want to talk about cost optimization or something, and it goes to a random engineer somewhere they're connected to that they've never spoken to before, it's just that conversation just doesn't happen yet. They're still paying the premium price point. So it makes sense to find a supplier that can actually talk to you about it on a one-to-one basis with the engineer, go through it, and you can see immediate cost savings. So that's one of the big themes. And the other one is basically setting up for resilience going forward. So we've all seen all sat in queues on supermarkets or DIY stores and been in the queue systems. Part of that's fulfillment, but part of that is actually just the way that their sites and applications are architected. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to see a lot of where
lots of people, big business, going to have to go back to the ground up and redesign these architectures.
Yeah, because I see a lot of these things online where people are saying, okay, well, they just need to, scale this and that, but actually it's not that, it's not that easy. If you're not designed it,
and if there's a dozen legacy systems connected in some way,
Yeah, I don't know the B&Qs and the Wix inside out personally, but you can be sure that there's going to be a whole bunch of legacy systems on the store level and the delivery level that they're going to have to be integrating with, and there will be a bottleneck somewhere. So it's not as simple as just going, give it more RAM. That's the easy answer, but not one that will
give it more RAM. So do you actually think that this is going to affect the offering that Just After Midnight present in the future? Is there going to be a slightly different package or a pandemic plus option that you're going to suggest? Suddenly the range of parameters that we have to build into our scenario planning have just got a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I feel like we were going in the right direction for this, not through any great foresight, but just because at the time, what we're doing is providing a more personal service. We are, already born in the cloud. We don't do anything that's sort of not cloud based. So from that perspective, that's the way it's going to go. And so we're already there, and also understanding that applications and the services or infrastructure that they're sitting on are becoming harder and harder to pull apart. They are, if you've got a real cloud native application, it's hard to see one from the other. So when you're supporting those kind of things, you have to have a good level of application knowledge. And also the 24/7 part of it. If the world's now going to a place where more stuff's going to be done online, that could be done at any time of day. So those themes were already the themes of our business. So I feel like we're in a good place there. What we are adding is a lot more services around sort of load and performance, and also security and vulnerability management on an ongoing basis, which we're seeing a lot of demand for at the moment. So we've had them in the pipeline for a while and sort of accelerating some of those programs so that we can actually have some packages that people can take, which add certain extra compliance and sort of load and performance options on top.
What about the cost optimization side? Is there anything you can sort of build into packages, which is, well, in certain scenarios, here's what we could do to reduce spend, or is it something you can preempt, I guess?
Yeah, that's becoming the norm anyway. I mean,
Mm.
any cloud consultancy now that is managing something ongoing, like the operations of that on behalf of their clients, um, generally will or should be looking at the spend there. So it changes the model for, there are examples still where MSPs will be pricing based on the size of the architecture, which absolutely makes sense, but it also can, in some cases, incentivize the wrong type of behavior. And the opposite of cost optimization, because if you're going to make more money as the MSP when the thing grows, that can be pumped up artificially, and that's something that I think is a problem. So our cost model is slightly different in that we look to fix things so that doesn't happen. The client can be always sure that we're working in their best interests. So I think that will
Quite,
be,
yes.
again, something that will happen. People will realise more and more that people need to be all working together in the best interest, and not sort of serving their own agenda.
So it certainly feels as though just after midnight and the whole kind of, I don't know, cloud infrastructure and consulting world is pretty ideally well placed in this sort of era potentially of multiple lockdowns or ongoing pandemic. And so, as well positioned as you are, what do you think will be the challenges, I guess, for wider business?
Mm.
How are you concerned about the agency world? Are you concerned about any of your clients in particular, or the industries that you might have worked with in particular? Do you foresee that there are industries that really will struggle to come back from this?
Yeah, I mean, inevitably that they're going to be, and they're going to be the ones that which rely heavily on the physical world. So it doesn't matter how much digital
Hmm.
marketing or kind of IT budget you have going into sort of digital. If your end product is in a place where you need physical locations, then that's obviously going to be affected massively. I think, though, on a long term, it will force some change that's needed to happen across all industries. I mean, I was talking to somebody in recruitment yesterday about this as well, and around. And if you look 6 months ago, the conversations that people were having with recruitment companies were about, especially in our world in DevOps and site reliability engineering, this kind of thing. Whilst they'll still hold up pretty well, I'd imagine, and conversations will change slightly over this period from, you need to see this person tomorrow morning, otherwise it's all gone, and big fees and all this kind of thing. It has to
Yeah.
change. People are looking for quality. People are going to take their time finding the right people for the right situation and the right businesses. And so people that are looking for jobs and those type of things are going to find a place that they believe in and trust and want to work at. So I think there'll be changes in every industry imaginable. But I mean, there's a load of talk about the new normal, but I think people will find a rhythm, and there'll be as many opportunities as there are issues. The biggest problem being the prospect of unemployment in a large scale way, and I think that's something that you can only prepare for so much at an individual business level. You can do what you can to keep yourself secure and cash flow and everything else, but at the end of the day, there's some geopolitical things that you can't.
And I guess you are hedged to a certain effect by having a distributed model and having people in different environments.
Yeah,
If Boston struggles, then hopefully Australia survives. So,
yeah.
as a man who kind of regularly gets on a plane to jet around the world and go and see different parts of the business, do you think that will? Do you foresee that coming back in the same way in the next 5 years, or do you think it could be longer term before you're as regularly in another part of the world as you were?
I was thinking about this the other day, and the short answer is I don't know. Part of me likes to think so, mainly from a sort of
Air
personal
miles
level. And I think,
perspective, yeah.
yeah, from a airline loyalty perspective. No, I like to think so, but then I also am completely on board with the fact that were we in the right place? Were we, ever growing air travel and the connectedness and the impact that has on the environment and other things? I think every one of us has probably thought, actually, it's like the oil companies. You suddenly think, well, is this such a bad thing? As much
Yeah.
as it's going to have an impact, and personally, it will hurt. I'm fully on board that we were going the wrong way with things. So I don't think I will travel as much. No, I will still need to go to those places. I still will want to, as with everybody, travel or go on holiday with the family and that kind of thing. But I think it won't be quite as frivolous as before. I mean, when I was living in Asia, in Singapore, as with many people that go over there and live there for a period of time, nearly every other weekend you're flying somewhere, because it's so easy and it's cheap and everything else. And I don't know if we want to go back to that place as a whole society. I'm sure individually we would, but I don't know if we do need to go back to that place, or if we do it, we need to do it in a more conscious manner and try and figure out how to make it more sustainable as a whole.
And do you think you're sort of alongside that? Do you think your longer term business strategy will rely as much on actually having physical office premises in different countries, or is it going to be far more about, well, where is the person in the world and what time zone do they want to work on?
Yeah, and I think we'll have less reliance on offices. I think the commercial property sector as a whole might have issues over the next few years, because people realise and would have been forced to realise by this whole event that we don't need the space that we did need. And you actually, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've connected better with some of the people that I work with, because you're seeing them outside of a work context. You'll see them in their home, and it gives you a direct connection with people being in their home almost. And I don't think people are going to want to cram on to tubes.
It's funny. I'd say that I'm probably having better conversations with people and with clients, with team members, and I don't think that's unusual. And because people are much more accepting of, it's not a phone call, it's a hangout or a Zoom by default, rather than as should we make this a special one? That it's adding some quality to the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, we find that even in like beer o'clock. We have like a Friday. I mean, we don't intentionally stick it to Fridays, but it just happens on Fridays to have a couple of beers in work or whatever. And we always used to go and grab one. You'd talk for about 1 minute, and then you go back to your desk and drink it. But actually, we take the time. So later on today, we'll get around, get the beer, and we'll do whatever.
It's not like when you and I were in the same office about 10 years ago, and it was more like every afternoon.
That was every day about 3, sometimes midday. That's different times, different places. But that's interesting, because that's the thing that I think the flip coin to what I just said around people realizing that you don't need to go and do that and get on the train. Also, we're social beings, and actually, I don't know, you agree? I love those times. It was awesome. I really enjoy being around people and having fun and going out and having a drink and all that good stuff. So we've got to come back.
But you realise that what's funny is that you realise that whole era of almost the kind of identity of the agency or the culture of the agency being, well, we hit the bar, we hit the pub, we're on this street in Soho. These are the places we hang out. These are where we take clients. None of that works anymore. So what's the identity if it's not that?
Yeah, I don't. And I saw a couple of pieces written about this, around like, if that was your whole stick, where you were located, it no longer matters. But I also think it means that
So you're glad you chose Peckham?
Yeah. Peckham's a great place. I love Peckham, but I think it changes. People have got to think about it in another way as well. There's a danger for agencies as well. If that was your thing, and we used to go into pitches when I was working agency side, and there was always this talk of, but we're only just down the road and all that kind of thing, even though it was fairly irrelevant. You now got to look at it on a global perspective, and competition globally in any market, agencies included, then opens up, because it doesn't matter if they're in Peckham or Soho or anywhere else in the world, and obviously markets are different, and prices there will be price pressure because of that, and so it's not feasible for a UK agency to be competing with some of the fees that are on offer from other countries. So
so how is it you offer something that isn't a commodity?
100%, and that's exactly what it means. People have got to work out where the value is, what they're offering, and it can't be a me too, because if it's a me too, it's going to be done somewhere cheaper, and that's a real risk moving forward for some of
and an opportunity, as you say.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's already that whole thing has already started to happen over the last few years anyway, regardless of this, but it will exacerbate matters.
Of course. Sam, it's been great talking to you, and best of luck with Just After Midnight, and hope that you continue supporting clients through this interesting time. Good stuff. Stay in touch.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Catch you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Exploring Digital with Purr, and see you for the next one. Thanks for joining. Remember to subscribe and follow us, and to share today's insights with other businesses you know who want to stay relevant in a digital-first world.